primary supporters place great value on parental rights, for example, over what a child learns in school or even what vaccines they receive. The parents of a transgender minor are involved in their care along with a physician. So why do parental rights not matter when it comes to the health of a transgender minor?
Well, I would say that because there's certain decisions that only that child can make. I don't believe that it's right for anyone to make a decision to sterilize a child except for that child when they understand the consequences of it. And that's part of the reason why we believe at the age of 16, there's been some jurisprudence around when children can start making medical decisions on their own. That may be when they begin taking puberty blockers or other hormones, and age 18, when they're full adults, is when they can engage in surgery. Those are some of the decisions that we've made based on some of the emerging evidence that is out there, some of the changes that we're seeing in jurisdictions around the world, and we think it strikes the right balance.
But people would argue that, for instance, withholding a vaccine, like a measles vaccine, for example, from a child is equally, harmful to the child. So I'm not really sure what the difference is here.
Well,
in terms of care for a transgender minor that is done in coordination with their parents and a physician,
yeah,
and withholding, a parent deciding not to vaccinate their child.
Well, I think it's a pretty big difference. One may, the one that we're dealing with here today, having physical surgery that prevents you from being able to have children is I think a whole order of magnitude difference.
People under 18 could never have surgery.
Well,
it's the puberty blocker.
Well, no, there are mastectomies that were taking place under the age of 18,
Yep.
yes. And we were watching as various organizations were suggesting that those kinds of surgeries should be done younger and younger and younger. We disagree. We think those kinds of surgeries should only happen at the age of 18 and older. And we also looking at the international evidence that's emerging that we believe that children should go through puberty before halting it so that they can make sure that they have kids of their own one day. If you don't become sexually mature, you can't have kids. And that's what we're trying to preserve.
Yeah. Incredible. I mean, Drea, say something about that.
I love her. I shouldn't say that as a journalist. I shouldn't say that. But what I really love is when she gets asked a question, she actually knows what she's talking about, which we don't see a lot. We saw Prime Minister Trudeau never know what he was talking about. Doug Ford just said something stupid and with a straight face, and everybody nods their head. Well, not everybody. So I love that she knows what she's talking about. But what she's talking about is in line with the majority of the world.
Yes.
That's another thing we need to look at. And the ones that went a little bit off the deep end on that are all coming back to sanity on this issue. We're seeing that in the UK. We see it in tons. Like if you look at the report that came out with all the medical professionals being exposed for admitting behind closed doors that kids don't understand what they're signing up for and the troubles.
Yes.
Yeah, it's insane to continue with this. So she's just calling it like it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Tamara, Lich, what say you?
Well, I grew up a tomboy. I never wanted to reach puberty. I didn't think I would ever want to have kids. I literally, all my friends were boys. I'd rather get dirty than play with dolls. And so if you would have approached me at the age of 10 or 11 years old and said, hey, I have the solution for you, so you never have to grow breasts, I would have been all over it. But I mean, agreed. I mean, how can you make a decision, a life-changing decision like that at such an age? So again, I have to applaud this move, especially, in light of my own experience. Obviously, I've thought about my childhood throughout this whole thing. And it's absolutely true. If you could have said there was a way that I could have avoided it, I would have jumped all over it. However, now I'm a 53-year-old grandmother. I'm going to have
it
my
all
sixth
worked out.
grandchild here next week. So it
all worked out. It all worked out. Here's the crazy thing. Puberty is hard on everybody, and we all got through it. It's a rite of passage. It's integral to a child's development. Bruce Pardy, the Canadian youth justice system.
Well, before you go on, can I just comment on this one? Because there's a little bit of tension in this one. This one's not quite as straightforward as the other ones, right? I mean, parental rights for me is a no-brainer. That the parents should be the first people and the main people to be able to decide what happens to a child. But this particular scenario is different. If I understand it correctly, I think it is this, that even if the parents together, both parents and the child, want something to happen, that the government's not going to allow it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you can make a case for that. And it's certainly in substance. I mean, I think subjecting a child to this kind of a surgery would be a terrible, terrible idea. But I'm not the parent and I'm not the child. So let me give you a comparison.
Yeah.
There are times when children who are Jehovah's Witnesses get into accidents and need blood transfusions. And the child says no and the parents say no. And in that kind of situation, it is my opinion that as much as I would like the child to be saved, that I don't think the state should insist upon giving a blood transfusion, even though the child and the parents both say no. You know, if you live in a free country, then you should be able to decide your medical treatment for yourself. And so here is a situation, an exception, where the Alberta government has said, you know what, we're not going to allow you, parents and child together, to decide what to do. So I understand in substance, I think that would be a terrible call, but I'm also inclined to think, look, when the going gets tough, if you're committed to the idea of free choice, then you have to allow people to make bad choices too.
And I don't agree at all, because what Danielle Smith is doing is shutting down the Munchausen by proxy mommies. Okay, there used to be a condition that mothers used to display where they would intentionally harm their children to put them in the medical on a medical pathway that would then get them attention. You know what I mean? You know what's happened with the acceptance of children being trans is the Munchausen mummies disappeared. Okay, they don't exist anymore because they've been embraced by the medical experts. They say, come on in, bring us your precious babies who have all of these things wrong with them, and we will cut and paste and butcher that child into your ideal, you know, what you and your kid have decided. She is protecting those kids from their crazy mothers.
Right. But be careful.
That's what's happening.
But be careful, because if that's your principle, that the state should protect children from their parents, then if you play that out, then that has all kinds of consequences, like, should the state protect the parents who say that they will not vaccinate their children? Right? So you can't have
I've got something to say about this.
Okay, go on, Drea.
Number one, you're totally right about what you're saying about how that is the standard with the Jehovah Witness, but we saw that go out of the door with vaccines, in particular when kids were hospitalized for other reasons and the medical professionals determined that they needed the COVID vaccine. It did not matter your religious views. You had to bend to the state. So I just want to say we've seen times ahead of Danielle Smith where the state has said, no, I don't care what your views are in this situation. We're
agreed. Sure.
Whether you or your child want it. The other thing I want to point out with this is the government does have to say when some things are not okay for children. She's gone through the list of things where we say, you know, whether or not you're a dad and you're like, I don't care if you drive my truck down the road. I mean, I don't know if that still happens, but when I was younger, there was a lot of underage kids driving vehicles with their parents' permission. I would not do that with my kid. But that's not okay. And that's a rule that we have too. Also, when I worked, you know, in the homeless shelter and just hearing what some of these kids had to go through with their parents, you don't always, whatever the parents decide to be okay is, and how young they were doing drugs with their parents, for example. And I tried to look up the stat, but of course, you know, those are one of those things you can't quickly Google, but I have read it before. There is a disproportionate amount of mothers who have borderline personality disorder raising kids that are identifying as trans, which is way more than the regular population of mothers. And so there's a lot that has to be said about why these children are not just rapidly identifying, but being strongly affirmed, in some cases as young as, you know, toddler age. So that's where I think it becomes a little bit more nuanced, and governments do have to stand up for the children.
Excellent point.
Sure. I don't doubt any of that, but just be careful, because it's very easy to be incoherent. And so the danger is that we'll end up picking and choosing the moments when we want parents to have the rights and the state to have the rights. If you go back and forth, depending upon the substance of the matter and those things, that the outcomes that you prefer, now we're really into picking and choosing. And so I would prefer a system where we establish what, who is it that has the call? Is it the parents? Is it the state? And, you have to try and stick to it.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same rhetoric.
We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us. Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.